Hello guys, Mark Holthe here, Canadian immigration lawyer, ex-immigration officer, and former high school teacher, coming to you live once again in our weekly EE Live question and answer session right here on the Express Entry Law private Facebook group, as well as out there in Canadian Immigration Institute YouTube land. So welcome everybody. Those who are watching it as a recording on YouTube, well, don't worry about it, you guys. You're not missing out a ton. If you want your questions to be asked, if you want them to be answered, let me close this out here. We'll get rid of those ones. Right here, send an email to mholthe and mholthe@stringham.ca, and don't forget to put EE Live Q&A in the subject line of your email, and then you'll be able to participate, although not live. You will be able to then watch it in the next video, and maybe your question will be answered. All right, so I'm just gonna shift a few things around here while we're waiting for people. Oh, look at that. I love this program. There's all kinds of cool things I can do. All right, I'm just gonna slide these back down here out of the way so they're not interfering with any time I'm showing you my screen. And I'm gonna, while we're waiting for some other people to log in here, because it takes a while for these videos to show up on people's timelines, I'm gonna pull it up on my own screen here so I'm following along as well. And I'm slowly starting to figure out some ways of doing this that are better than others. All right, but obviously, as always, I'm consistently struggling with the production value of these. So hopefully the content compensates for the lack of amazing bells and whistles in professional production that you do see out there on YouTube land. Some law firms have a lot more money at their disposal, and so they create these fancy old video infographics, and their YouTube channels have high definition cameras and all those kinds of things. Well, who cares? We don't have that. All we have is awesome content. All right, I'm going to go in here. I'm going to shut my volume down, and I'm going to make sure that I am right here. I've got this loaded up. All right, so now I can see people's comments. We've got Rohit. Hi, Rohit, how are you? Sanjeev is tuning in here. He says, hello, Mark. And this is actually good for you YouTube people because you can't see the live comments unless you join the private Express Entry Law Facebook group. All right. Victor says, hi, Mark, watching from Germany. Cool. Welcome. Welcome. And Samita says hi as well. So as you're jumping on and watching this live, post in the comments where you're listening from. And this is something I ask people to do every time. I just love seeing the reach of this. And when I first started doing these videos, back in 2017, it seems like it really hasn't been that terribly long. But when I started doing those back in 2017, I had no idea, none, that this was going to grow to the extent that it has now. And it's all about, it's all about you guys. It's all about providing direction and advice that you can trust. And many of you have probably heard my explanation of why I started doing this. Well, as a Canadian immigration lawyer, traditionally, I'd always worked for business immigration firms. And traditionally, that's kind of the practice that I had. Large multinational companies sending people into Canada. And at the time, Alberta was booming. There was lots of work. Then the government had brought in a whole bunch of foreign workers, and Canada was the place to work. But over time, the economy started to go down, and then the government started to look at all of these foreign workers and wondering, well, what are we going to do with them? And is there pathways to permanent residence to transition them so that they're not all going to go illegal like they did in the US? And so they created, one of the things they did was they created Express Entry, which initially was quite good for anyone working in Canada on a labor market impact assessment. But over time, it turned out to not be so good because the government removed a lot of the points that people would normally get. And those people that were scrambling, trying to get their permanent resident application submitted before their work permits expired, was creating huge issues. So I started by drafting blogs, trying to explain to people what they needed to do to prepare for these changes. Because at the time, I was a member at large, or an executive member of the our National Canadian Bar Association's immigration section. And so I knew Express Entry was coming. I knew what it was going to look like, and I knew how people were going to be impacted. So I wrote a couple blog posts, and they went boom, they went crazy viral. In fact, my website, I had over 15,000 people that came in one day and shut it down. So then I increased it up again, And the same thing happened when I released another blog post. So I was producing this information. It was awesome. But I realized, well, often what would happen is people would read the blog and then they would call me to book a consultation. And then I would meet with them and realize that because they'd either relied on someone else, a friend or a helpful source on the internet to give them direction, they hadn't adequately prepared in time, or they'd followed the wrong process, which directly resulted in them losing their small little window of opportunity to transition to permanent residence. And I had consult after consult after consult. It was crazy. And repeatedly, I would have to tell them that there wasn't any hope of being able to stay. And if they had contacted me a year before, then there wouldn't have been any issues and I could have helped them. But when do people hire lawyers? You know, us money-grubbing lawyers who all we want is just money and to line our pockets with the dollars of those poor people out there. You know, that's all we're good for, right? All these lawyers. But people would only come to see me when they had exhausted all avenues. And at that stage, there was nothing that I could do. And so I would often feel bad about charging them the consult fee because even though I spent the time with them and I told them clearly what their opportunities and what their limitations were, I felt bad about charging them because I knew they needed that money to basically help them to go back and settle in their home country again. Their dream of coming to Canada was over. So I realized that that was not a good business model, doing free consults all day for everyone. I had staff to pay, office expenses. And so I was trying to figure out, how can I do this? How can I get the message out to people so that I'm helping them? And because I was saying the same thing over and over to every person. And so I realized that if I use social media, whether it was video, and I actually started with podcasts, and I'm just going to flip over here to my screen. And I know a lot of you guys know about it, but let's see if I can find it right here. Some of you that are just tuning in for the first time may not be aware of this. But this right here, guys, the Canadian Immigration Podcast, is where I started doing this. And some of the very, very first basic blog podcasts that I did were all directed to foreign workers and how they could remain in Canada. And so I realized by doing that, I could amplify my message. I would have the opportunity and the ability to reach way more people and do it in a very effective and efficient way versus one-to-one, repeating the same thing over to one person after another, after another. Now the reach could be thousands of people. So that's why I created it. And then over time, I stumbled upon Facebook Live, which is this. It's so easy to do these videos. So that's why I started doing this. And then I created the private group because I didn't want people going in there, one, advertising their services, because obviously the reason I started this group was to help people, number one. But two, for those who actually did want to hire a representative, well, I wanted to show them, not tell them, show them that I knew what I was doing and that it was worthwhile to actually hire me and help them, because that's what I do for a living. And so I created the private group so that I could have control over who came in. But guys, as you can see, the group is massive. Like we have grown to, I'm going to share my screen again here. If we go back to the page here, and I'm going to go back out of here and see if I can find the current number. Canadian Immigration Institute is hovering still at 25,000. We are like 13 members away from 119,000. Wow. When we hit 120, I'm going to have to do something awesome to celebrate. I love these milestones. They are so awesome. Anyways, so you can see the group has grown exponentially, and the ability that I have to reach people initially just blew me away. Now, over the last while, it's been somewhat frustrating because I know that Facebook doesn't just make these videos appear on all of your timelines. In fact, you often have to search for them. And so because of that, I'll share my screen again. That's why a lot of these videos, well, really all of them, let's go back here and see if I can find this. Bear with me here, guys. That's why I created the Canadian Immigration Institute's YouTube channel. And I'm going to click on it right here and go to my channel. And so we are over 10,192 subscribers. It's actually really cool. I'm doing nothing other than posting the videos here to grow this channel. But all of the videos that I do here, you can see, I post them here. So if you missed an EE Live Q&A, those of you on YouTube know the value of this. You'll be able to see. And lately I've been really trying. So if I click on last week's here, and I pause it. I've been really trying, for those of you who are looking for specific information, and I love the negatives. I love this. One person disliked it. I'm assuming they're an agent or a consultant or someone I kicked out of the group, but whatever, it's totally cool. So down here, when I click on show more in the description in YouTube, I have a link. You can actually hyperlink to the section. So can I claim proof of funds that came from an insurance payout? So you click on this and it jumps directly to that part of the video. So another way to help you guys and to give you resources to just make it easier to get the information that you need. So that's why I created all of these things. And now with Facebook, like I said, it's a little bit challenging. So I'm going to be doing some interesting things with our banner image to let people know about special promotions and deals that I have going on. And it seems like you guys love deals. Everybody loves a sale, right? So even though I know that this right here, this Express Entry Complete Step-by-Step Guide to Doing It Yourself is awesome, and so many people have subscribed to it. The reality is you guys are always waiting for deals. So those of you who are watching this video, I don't advertise it anywhere, but those of you who are watching this video, I want you to know that there is a code that you can use to get 50% off the lifetime access. And I had a special deal through the summer that was 60% off, which I'm not going to return to. That was a good deal, and that's like a one-time only. But I do have a running 50% off of the lifetime access for the people who actually watch these videos and pay attention. And so I'll show you guys really quickly what the code is. So I'm not going to post it anywhere, but those who are watching it will be able to see what it is. So all you do is you go to the Canadian Immigration Institute, and you guys can see this, but if you type in CanadianImmigrationInstitute.com, eventually it will load up here. I think it's just thinking, I guess. There must be all the videos that I'm doing here taking their sweet time. Make sure that I've got it on the right section here. Okay, here it is. So once you're here, and you can just type in Canadian Immigration Institute, you go to Enroll in Course, and then you click on Enroll right here. And then once you click in One-Time Purchase Lifetime Access, then there's a little box here that says Add Coupon. And if you click in here and you type in EEDIY 50% and click Apply, boom, $248.50 for lifetime access to the course. So, but you guys, like I've said, I don't advertise this to the world. I don't. So those of you who, and you know who you are, who watch these videos are going to get the benefit of that. And so that's what you need to do. All right. So I know that these resources are awesome, but you guys love sales. So that's all good. All right. We have jabbered on just about enough, but I did want to show you one thing that, that I did just the other day. So check this out. There is Joe, my horse, and my daughter, Michaela. And we're practicing getting Joe to stop, but yeah, he wasn't too interested in stopping there. So we're trying to get him to stop by just saying, whoa, whoa, one whoa, not multiple whoas. And so she said, whoa, and he didn't stop. So then she had to pull in on the reins to get him to stop. Anyway, so that is what we've been working on lately with our good old quarter horse Joe. And that I'm really enjoying that. This year I decided not to coach the junior varsity volleyball with the boys. And now I'm able to enjoy this awesome weather. And I want to show you guys this too. Check this out. I'll show you. Many of you are thinking, oh, it's probably freezing in Canada. And yeah, it was a little bit cold, but I'm going to pull this up and I'm going to show you right here. This is the lovely city of Lethbridge. Check it out. 15 degrees Celsius. And that heat is coming right through my window here. It's creating awesome lighting for this video. And it's just awesome. So, all right, now that I've spent a little bit of time with some intros, and I'm going to now jump to answering questions. And as always, guys, remember, the ones that send them in via email get answered first. And then once we get through those, then I jump in to actually answering all of your live questions. Okay, so let's start off, and then I'm going to get a pen. All right. So I got a pen here because that is the way that I'm able to keep track of everything that's happening. And you know what? It's actually really hot in here too. I'm losing this jacket. There we go. And I'm turning the temperature down because it was pretty hot. Okay, first question. Supriya says, my CR score will be 443 if I do not accompany my spouse, and only 417 if I accompany him. So my question is, can I apply without accompanying him? Okay, so I think what Supriya is asking is if she's the principal applicant, if her husband comes with her score is 443. And if he doesn't, it's 417. And many of you guys have asked this question, and this is the one that I want to make the key question for this episode. The reality is, and actually I better make a note of when I started talking about this. We'll say about 15:45. So the key for this to understand is that individuals are weighted differently than couples when it comes to the comprehensive ranking system. So if I go in here, I'll share my screen again, and we're going to go up and we're going to search up CRS criteria. This will tell us exactly how the points are structured for the purposes of express entry. So I'm going to pull this up and I'm going to slide this over here, and I can make it just a little bit bigger without encroaching on my ugly mug over there. So let's take a look at the points. So here, we'll close that off. I don't need any of this. Okay, so when you look at this, you'll see that with a spouse or common law partner, you're actually given less points, 100 for age, compared with 110 if you are without a common law partner. And if you go down one more, level of education is less, 10 less, official languages is 10 less, and Canadian work experience is 10 less. So why is there 40 less points for a person that has a spouse or common law partner when it comes to the comprehensive ranking system? Well, it's because the extra 40 points are attributed to your spouse. So if you are an individual that has a spouse that does not have the same level of education as you, or that has a lower language ability, so they don't score as high on the IELTS, well, there's 20 points. If we flip back here again, there's 20 points alone that are attributed for, and we'll close this off, for language alone. So sometimes spouses don't have as good a language. And same thing for education. Maybe you have a master's, but your spouse only has a high school diploma. Well, you can lose. And generally speaking, sometimes people, Canadian work experience, sometimes this plays a role, but in most cases, a lot of you don't have work experience in Canada anyway, so you're not really losing points. But for accompanying a spouse and having a spouse not accompany you, the difference can be 30 points. And so that's going to be a huge difference. And we have looked at the rounds of invitations. We know that if you're not at about 440 points right now, you know that you're probably not going to qualify. So I just got off a consult with one of my favorite clients, an awesome guy, Chris, and we looked at his situation, and he was hovering on 339 points, and his spouse was unable to score higher on the IELTS. She tried and tried, but we looked at it and realized if we didn't include her, he would have 441. And so we made the decision today to go forward with listing her as non-accompanying. Now, one of the drawbacks to doing that is that you won't be able to have your spouse, in most cases, come to live with you in Canada until after you've gone through a formal landing process as a permanent resident, and then go through the spousal sponsorship process, which right now processing times are 12 months from the date you submit the application. The one advantage for Chris is that he and his spouse are South Korean citizens. So they do not require a visa to come to Canada. Now, obviously, if at any point in time, if you choose to go through the process and you don't include your spouse, you could score higher and get more comprehensive ranking system points. Your spouse still needs to get their police clearances and their immigration medicals. That's an important part. And your proof of funds is still quantified based on that entire family group. But when it comes to the actual process, you will go through, you will get your ITA if your scores are high enough. Then you will file your whole application listing your spouse as non-accompanying, which you would have done in the beginning in your profile. And then you go through the landing process, land in Canada, and then once you get yourself settled, apply to sponsor your spouse. Well, for most people, it's going to be really difficult to convince an officer that your spouse is going to go home if you're applying for a visitor visa to come to Canada. And in many cases, when they see that a spouse was listed as non-accompanying in a permanent resident application, they will refuse to grant the TRV. And that's not 100%. If you can show that your spouse is fully employed and has significant ties to the home country and they truly are just coming for a visit, it is possible to get that TRV or temporary resident visa approved. But generally speaking, it's not. And most visa offices will often refuse. But and someone popped up here, what about children? Well, the reality is kids also fit into that equation. But the beauty is you could include your children and not include your spouse. I've never done that myself. Children, whether they're accompanying or not, do not factor into the application. But the reality is you need to very clearly identify your rationale as to why your spouse is staying behind, who normally may or may not be helping to take care of the children, and you're coming to Canada. And so that's one that's up in the air in terms of how an officer will actually look at dependent children. But there's no law restricting you from having your spouse as being non-accompanying and including your children. So back to get on track. If you are coming from a country that does not require a visa to come to Canada, such as South Korea, then listing your spouse as non-accompanying is not a huge deal. Your spouse can get an electronic travel authorization, or even if they have it already, they can travel to visit you when they want to while the application is being processed for sponsorship. And in some cases, people, they apply for a visa or they obtain an electronic travel authorization to come visit their spouse. And then once they're there, realize that, you know what, it probably makes more sense for us just to stay, extend our stay as a visitor, and then submit an in-Canada spousal sponsorship application. So that's entirely open. And in the case of Chris, that is an option that's open to him and his wife. Now, she's working and has employment, and there's valid reasons why she's not coming right now. But ultimately, that's an option for them because they don't have to actually apply for a visitor visa and then go through greater scrutiny and possibly get that entry visa refused. So it's something to consider, guys. You factor in all those things. In the case of Chris, if his spouse does decide to come here, then we have the ability of filing an in-Canada spousal sponsorship application, which has some pretty significant advantages, one of which is that you can include an open work permit with it. And within about 4 months of filing the application, your spouse can get an open work permit to start working right away while the permanent resident application is being processed. So that's the world of including spouses. But I'll give you a couple things that you must never, ever forget. One is that if you list your spouse as non-accompanying, you're not indicating that you're single, okay, unmarried. You are indicating you're married, but then in the designated spot within your profile, you're indicating that your spouse is non-accompanying. So never be in a situation where you don't disclose them at all. That is wrong. If you did that, you could be subject to a permanent bar of ever sponsoring them. And that is found in the immigration regulations, section 117.9D. And it's harsh, it's cruel. So don't make that mistake. You list them as non-accompanying, and then they do have to get their police clearances and medical completed before you are able to land. And if that spouse is medically inadmissible to Canada, then it could still make you medically inadmissible. And same with children. Now, the likelihood of medical inadmissibility being an issue these days is not quite what it used to be because of the changes that the government has made, but it is still possible. All right. So there we go. That is the answer to the super big question of our EE Live Q&A today, which is all the ins and outs of non-accompanying. And so we're going to take that one, we're going to set it aside, and we're going to move to the next question right here at 2450. All right. Next question is from Rahil. And he says, hello, Mark, sir. How are you doing? Good. He says, hope you're doing good. Sorry, I got to show you guys something. Check this out. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Here they are. I think I showed you these before. I'm turning 46 here in about 6 days. I'm turning 46. And as you get older, some of you will recognize that your ability to see this tiny small print here tends to be a little bit difficult. And so that's what I'm experiencing now. I've got some multifocal contact lenses that my optometrist, who's a good friend, Shane, has given me, but I struggle seeing even with them. So I went to the local Shoppers Drug Mart here and I bought myself some of these fancy glasses. All right, so maybe I should keep these on a little bit while I'm trying to read. They're kind of goofy, but at least I can kind of see. And then I see people looking over them. Don't I look like some old man? Oh boy, I don't feel like an old man, but anyways, that's what happens when you get old. Okay, so let's see what Rahil says here. He says, hope you're doing good. Me and my wife are on a work permit in Canada right now. Cool, that's awesome. She's going to be the main applicant. She is having a NOx 0 job. Okay, so from when her experience can be counted? From the day she completed her studies or from the day she applied for a work permit? Hey, we've had this one before. I wonder if I answered this one before and I just printed it off twice. Oh well, I could have possibly. No, this is today. This came in today. Okay, so Rahil, your answer with respect to this question relates to postgrad work permits. And in the case, and it's not technically express entry, but I guess it is because it's when can you start to count your work experience? Well, under the Canadian experience class, you can't count work that's gained. Well, really, you can't count any Canadian work experience that's achieved while you are actually studying on a study permit in Canada. So there's a period of time where you submit your postgrad work permit and you don't get a response back. So there's a processing time. So you'll file it and then you'll have to wait. But during this time, you can keep working. And so that's what happened with Rahil's spouse here. So they filed the postgrad work permit after she graduated, started working before the postgrad work permit was actually obtained, the actual hard copy of it, which is totally acceptable, 100%. Well, the answer is you can start counting work experience from the date you filed your postgraduate work permit application. So the submission date. So that's where you can start counting. All right. Second question is, she has 3 years of work experience back home. How can we claim that? What documents we require for that? Okay, Rahil, that's a whole different discussion on how to claim work experience. Excuse me. It's a good one. Let me just put it here, 2756. This is what happens when you're doing everything yourself. So work experience, a quick response. 3 years, 3 years is really the maximum that you can get for comprehensive ranking system points. It's 6 years of work experience for the Federal Skilled Worker Program. I suspect for Rahil, it's not an issue as to whether or not they qualify for the Canadian Experience class or the Federal Skilled Worker Program. In all honesty, probably if they're in Canada, it's going to be the CEC. So in this case, we're really only looking at 3 years that you have to show. So if you've got, Rahil, you've got 1 year of Canadian work experience on the postgrad work permit, then that will probably qualify for the CEC. And then the work experience overseas, it's reference letters. And if I share my screen and we open up a new window, and we'll call this the completeness check. I've done this quite a bit before. I'll do it really quick. This website, EE Completeness Check, this is where you can find your work experience. And to claim it, it's pretty straightforward. All you need to do is provide a reference letter right here from your employer, official document printed on company letterhead, including the contact information for the company, as well as the name, title, and signature of your immediate supervisor. And then it should include all the positions held with the company. And here's the important part, must include the following details, which I have done so many videos on this: job title, duties and responsibilities, job status, dates worked for the company, numbers of hours worked, and annual salary plus benefits. So that's what you need, my friend. And you do that, you're going to be in great shape. And Rahil, remember, my friend, if you're filing your application from within Canada, often we're seeing these applications going quicker if you get it right. Now, because your spouse is on a post-grad work permit, time is running out and you need to make sure that you do things properly. And I think I've told you guys a lot about this in the past. I wonder if it's this one. Is it this one? Yes, it's this one. So I'm going to jump over here. Remember, in Canada, obviously people are earning more money than they are outside of Canada and have more disposable income. But the reality is I have rock bottomed my price for full representation to $2,500 Canadian, taxes and fees, for members of this group. And those who ask for it can get it. So if you're listening to that and you tell me, I will do that work for you for $2,500 full representation, which is rock bottom price, a lot cheaper than I normally charge, which is $5,000. Okay, let's move on. Great questions, Raheel. Moving forward, we'll put that there. Actually, I'm going to keep all of these nice and organized for me. And one day I will have a nice person that will be able to keep track of all of this for me. Okay, next question here. This one is from Siddhantha. And Siddhantha says, or Siddhanth, sorry. Dear Mark, my name is Siddhanth. I'm from India. However, currently I'm studying in Toronto. Oh, another in Canada. And my session started this September for 1-year graduate certificate program. Yuck, yuck, yuck. This is an opportunity, Siddhanth, to explain to you and everybody else who's thinking about studying in Canada, do not waste your time with 1-year programs. All they will result in is 1-year post-grad work permit. Don't waste your time. If you're going to take the time to come over, do at least 2 years. Okay, I'll leave it at this. Let's see what else is in here. So, started the session 1-year graduate certificate program, but my last education qualification is up till Masters of Business Administration from India. So my question arises, do I need to get my previous education evaluated separately if I decide to apply for express entry later on after the completion of my current program to max out points for education qualifications? I always go ahead and get those masters equated. Now, I don't know what school you're going to here. I don't know ultimately what credential you're going to get. And for all intents and purposes, if it's a graduate, I'm assuming it's some kind of a PhD or master's level. And those in Canada will equate. There's no ECA needed, but I will often go and get that master's, that MBA completed regardless, get the ECA done just so that I have a backup. And I never ever want to take chances with express entry. You guys have seen what's happened. Only last year, we were getting ITAs with 413 points. 413. In fact, I had a client that just scraped through on the last opportunity, literally days before the 413 draw. Guess what? If that client was applying today, or that client had done it on their own and made a simple little mistake, their dream of being in Canada would be done. It would be shot. Completely history. So you need to be very, very careful. And I always have contingencies. I never do the least amount that I need to. I always make sure that I've got a backup, because if an officer doesn't accept something, some form of education, I want a backup to allow them to then use the next best one, which hopefully will still keep me above the pass mark. So that's what I do, Siddhanth. So good question. All right, next question. This one at 3330 is from Mary. And seems like my eyes are focusing again here. So Mary says, with the dollar to rupee fluctuation, I am short some amount of money to meet the set amount committed. So I think the proof of funds amount. Till the rupee was 52, it was fine. Now it's 56. Okay, till rupee was 52, it was fine. Now that it's up to 56, I'm short of some funds. Can I now add this amount to my account to make good its equivalent sum? Absolutely. Just keep bolstering it, because at the time in which you filed, that amount that you had in rupees was equivalent to the minimum processing. Okay, so let's see here. So then I'm just trying to think here. Okay, so yeah, so the proof of funds, just to get back on track here, I'm short. So the funds, yeah, just bolster it, add a little bit to top it up, and it's totally fine. That's not an issue, because at the time in which you filed your eAPR, the amount that you had at that time was sufficient. And if an officer comes back at any given time and says, now you don't have it, well, they should give you a fairness letter, which will allow you to have proof that, or at least justify how you've now made up the difference. Because if there was any officer who refused because they said, oh, now the currency, sorry, is too, the exchange is too low, without giving you an opportunity to demonstrate, I think that would be something that could be reviewed judicially in federal court. But anyways, so that's a great question. The second part says, also having had my father as joint holder, can I delete my father's name and show the funds in my name? Will there be any issue raised? These funds are mine, which I got from life insurance upon maturity. I have the docs for that. Please advise. I don't worry about deleting your father. He's been on there since the beginning. Just get a letter from him stating that the funds are yours unequivocally and that they're used for settlement. And there's never going to be an issue with that. People have lots of times joint accounts with parents, and I in fact have one with my wife, with my mother. Well, obviously for me, it's to help her as she gets older in years, but that happens. Okay, Mary, great question. Okay, next question is Mahesh, and Mahesh says, I'd like to say a big thank you for your valuable advice and counseling. Thanks, Mahesh. Post-grad ITA. Okay, sorry. Look at this, guys. Can you believe this? You guys have been watching these videos. I swear it's just the last few months. It's been crazy. Okay, let's put these crazy things back on. Okay, post getting ITA. There we go. I can read that. You got this weird reflection, but that's okay. Post getting ITA. Presently, we are in the process of submitting our application. I wanted to know if my wife can travel alone without the dependent spouse. That's me and a 4-year kid. Sure, if she wants to. If your spouse is the principal applicant, the idea is to ensure she gets into a proper job, then me and my son joins her later, but before medical expiry in August. So is it possible to go with the above plan? Yeah, Mahesh, there's no issue. As long as the principal applicant lands first, then all the dependents can land whenever they want to, as long as that permanent resident visa does not expire. So like you've pointed out here, the visa is usually valid till the 1-year anniversary of your medical exam, usually. So you don't want to have a situation where you wait, and then the visa expires before you travel, because that would require the principal applicant, your spouse, to have to re-sponsor everyone again. And then he says, if possible, will it not affect our PR application process post-landing? No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It means she's going to get her PR card before you guys, but you have flexibility to do that. So good question. All right. Next question here is Visha. These glasses are actually awesome. They cost me, I think, $18 Canadian. Well, I wouldn't say that they were completely awesome, but they do allow me to see. Okay. Okay, Vesha says here, and I'll put the timestamp again. Vesha says, in my country, they do not do gift deeds for the transfer of money. Will a notarized affidavit, agreement, or declaration alone suffice? Yes, you can do it in whatever format you feel acceptable, as long as it's very clear that the money is unequivocally it's unequivocal and irrevocable. So in other words, whoever gives it to you can't claim it back. So it's an actual gift, and that it's used for your settlement, and it's not a loan, something that you're going to pay back. Now, as I've said repeatedly, family give money. Friends loan money. It would be a real hard stretch for someone to say that their friend just gave them $12,000 or $13,000 Canadian to meet the minimum proof of funds for express entry, and that it was never expected to pay back. They're just my good buddy. I think an officer would question that to some extent, but a legal agreement confirming it with an affidavit is a great way to go. Great question, Visha. Okay, next question is Suresh. And Suresh says, I'm from Nepal and have a bachelor's degree in business business studies in 2013. And I've been working as a managing director in my own transport company since 2015. And recently in August, I completed a master's degree in business studies from the same university. Okay, so my query is, in this case, can I get educational points while calculating a CRS score, because my work experience is prior to master's degree? They will provide me the score for my bachelor's degree or for master's. Okay, you guys often, many of you confuse this. Who cares what your work experience is or whether it's compared to your education? It's not related. Your education is awarded points if it equates to education in Canada by way of an educational credential assessment through one of the designated agencies like ICAS or IQUIS or the Toronto University or that other entity starting with the W who refuses to come on my podcast. So there's a lot of those other ECAs that you can do. And, but ultimately your work doesn't apply. You don't have to meet the minimum criteria in the NOC for educational requirements. You don't have to meet those. It's all based on the job duties that you perform and whether you performed a substantial number of the main duties and all of the activities in the lead statement. That's what drives it. Now, if you said that you were an astrophysicist and you only had a high school education, maybe they would start to question whether or not that work experience as an astrophysicist was really accurate. But if you're providing the proper reference letters, you've got everything in place that you need to prove that work experience, having the minimum education that Canada says you're supposed to have to work in the occupation is not binding. It doesn't require you for express entry to do that. Okay, next question at the 4052 mark is Rohit, and Rohit says, I'm writing in regards to my education. I'm a qualified chartered accountant from India. I started pursuing this after I successfully completed a bachelor's in March 2010. I started my chartered accountancy in May and completed in 2010 and completed in May 2017. In this period, we have to undergo mandatory training of 3 years, which I did. After that, a student has to appear for the final exam and get their professional degree. As soon as I completed my training, I started looking for a job. And in the same month, I got the job. And since then, I've been working in the same company. Although I took leaves to appear for my exams, please advise, how should I mention this in my profile? Okay, wow, that was a big question. Understand that as long as you're meeting the minimum requirements to qualify your work, in other words, well, what are the minimum requirements for Federal Skilled Worker Program? Let's jump in and take a look. So we go FSWP eligibility. I've got it right here. And then I'm just going to move this up just a little bit. So if we go here at eligibility, it tells you exactly what you need to do to be able to claim the work experience. So we're going to go through all of that. I like how they set it up now. They've actually made it easier for people to understand. So as long as your work experience falls in a skilled NOC, 0A or B, and you've done the things like I said, lead statements, all the essential duties and most of the main duties, this is wrong. This is where policy does not equate to law. So this should not say most. It should say a substantial number. So what does most mean? Most could be 51%. And I would argue that's not substantial. So there's an example where I disagree with the policy that IRCC is putting out on their own website, but we'll leave it at that. So this is what you need to show, right? You have to choose your primary NOC. It has to be within the last 10 years, which seems to be the case for you, Rohit. If we scroll down further, it has to be paid. I'm assuming that you were paid during this time, okay? But if it's not, if it's volunteer or it's an unpaid internship, then it doesn't count. It has to be at least a year continuous. Once you've met this threshold, which basically means 1,560 hours total, you can't work less than 1 year. It has to be at least 1 year continuous, at least 30 hours a week, which can be met in a couple different ways. So one full-time job, an equal amount in part-time, or a full-time at more than one job. So as long as you have that, then you're good to go. There shouldn't be any issues. Okay, so good question. All right, next question is from Cyril. And this is a proof of funds question. This one says, my husband's mom has inherited money from a house sale after her parents died. She's been giving us money in the last 6 months, 1,000 euros at a time, maybe 5 or 6 times. She plans to give us the last bit of which will be 4,000 euros. Do we need to show anything in the proof of funds, or will explaining what I just told you be enough? We don't want them rejecting us because they think it's a loan. Thank you in advance. I just get an affidavit, a sworn statement from your mom saying I've given them this money over this period of time. And then I would include the bank statement showing the funds going in. And even if your mother has wired funds out of her account, even the source of those funds. Like I said, I don't take chances. I do not take chances at all with express entry. There was a time initially where I thought, oh, I'll make the officer's job easy, and I'll just give them exactly what they need, and I won't waste their time giving them more than they need. Well, with the crazy volatility of express entry and how totally unforgiving and cruel the processing of those applications can be, I'm not going to say 100% that the officers are cruel, because they're just following the instructions given them by their supervisors and the powers that be at IRCC in Ottawa. But the reality is it can be harsh. And you forget one thing, or you think you've included enough, and then an officer says, sorry, that's not enough. I don't take chances. So I load it up. My express entry applications are very full and very comprehensive, and they include probably information that an officer is wondering, Mark, why are you including it? Well, it's because you and your friends are refusing other people I know who submit documentation that they think is enough, but you don't think it's enough. So we can't take any chances. All right. So that's what I would do. Just get a statement from her, and then make sure you're still getting the letter from your bank exactly in accordance with what the officers expect. And so if we go back to our share my screen again, and I'm a little bit over top of this, we'll pull this over a little bit so I'm not quite there. There we go. And then we'll go back here, and this time we're going to search up in the top here, funds. That's good right there. I love this search feature. It's so good. You just want to make sure that your letter meets these requirements right here. Official letter lists all the current bank and investment accounts as well as outstanding debts such as credit cards, debts, and loans. Must be printed on the letterhead of the financial institution and must include your name and contact information. Your name and the contact information of the financial institution, your account numbers, the date each was opened, and the current balance of each account, as well as the average balance for the past 6 months. So, and you can see here, they can always come and ask more information if they want to, but sometimes they don't. Sometimes they just refuse and say, too bad. And that is the world of express entry. Okay, great question. Next question coming up here. This one's from Raj, and we are at the 47 mark. Raj says, thank you for all your support and great work. This is Raj from India. I'm self-employed and also working as a contractor for a Canadian company for the last 7 years, since July 2011. So this is a self-employed virtual work. I have got substantial documents and enough evidence to prove my work experience. Hours worked along with nice reference letter from this company and also a job offer now to cover the past 10 years experience. Should I try to prove my work experience for 3 more years before July 2011, from 2008 to 2011, or is it just enough to just show 7 recent years? For this 3-year period, I may not have very strong evidence. Okay, yeah, Raj, like I said before, if you've met the minimum requirements for the Federal Skilled Worker Program, you have got 67 points out of those 100-point selection criteria, and you don't need any more than 3 years of work experience, then don't worry about it. 3 years, 7 is way more than you need. In fact, 3 years is probably all that you need, most people do, because you're not going to get any more comprehensive ranking system points. And remember, your work experience can't count as Canadian work experience, even though it's a Canadian company. You're outside of Canada. So you actually have to be in Canada to gain that experience and be employed in that fashion. So, all right, good question. All right, Raj, moving on. Next question. This one is from Arshana. And Arshana says, Dear Mark, couldn't thank you enough for the great work you're doing, guiding us through this great ordeal called express entry. Excuse me. Wow. Sometimes when it's warm, I start to sneeze. She says, indeed, kind and remarkable work. Keep it up. Thumbs up. Great. Thank you. I need your help and guidance in this regard. I have filed my eAPR on the 1st of August, and for proof of funds, shown the required funds in fixed deposit, cash, and savings account. Now my fixed deposit has matured and it's over, after which I have made a new fixed deposit with the same amount. Do I need to update my profile and inform CIC about my new fixed deposit and send them a copy of the same? If yes, what do I do to update my profile and inform CIC about it? There is very little mechanism designed for you to update an eAPR after you've submitted it. So your funds are there. They haven't changed. The only thing that's changed is that they've matured and that you've now had to put them in something else. That fixed deposit, that's not an issue. When the time comes, if an officer has any questions, then you'll have evidence to show that those funds are still there. They haven't disappeared. They might be in a different account, but they're still there. And so you shouldn't have to worry about that at all. Arshana, just make sure you keep meticulous records showing the source of the funds, and that if you had to move them to a different account, that you still have full control in the same way with those funds. And then when you land, or at any point in time, like we said before, if I go back here and share my screen with you again, like we showed before, they could always come back and ask for more information if they feel it's necessary. So that's an entire possibility, but there's no real meaningful way of notifying IRCC regarding updates or changes. So yes, there's a case-specific process, but in those circumstances, I wouldn't worry about it. When you get your confirmation of permanent residence and you're getting ready to land, then in those circumstances, you are able to provide whatever updated information you need to prove that the money is still there and available to settle in Canada. Great question. All right. Last question, you patient folks there. This one is Shrida, and here's her question, and it's at the 5042 mark. Okay, this is Shruti. Thank you for all you do. Much helpful, and with this, you are impacting people's lives. God bless you. Thank you, Shruti. Coming to the question. Can I show my Provident Fund, which is my retirement account in India, as proof of funds? Short answer, yes, 100% you can. I have a home loan here in India. Does the government subtract my loan amount from my proof of funds to determine how much do I have to be considered as actual funds? No, they do not in any way. And actually, it was either the last EE Live Q&A or the one before where I answered that question in detail. So go back and watch 2 previous ones on proof of funds. But the answer is they do not subtract at all a mortgage from the funds that you have to settle. In fact, they look at everything holistically. What are your payments? Do you have a plan in place to help make those payments going forward? And I actually just last week was helping a client navigate the same exact issue. They'd taken some funds, bought a property in their home country, and were making payments on the mortgage. So that is the scoop. All right, so that's the last question. As far as all the written ones go, thanks for your patience. Starting now at the 52-minute mark, you can now start posting your questions, and I will go to the Facebook page here and pull it up, and I will now search for the last comment. Okay, so, and I see Zainab is trying to connect Sagar and Ravish and Malik. So all those guys have to join and be invited into the group. That's why you're not able to tag them. So once they're invited in, then they can see everything and participate just like you, Zainab. Okay, let's see what Razib has to say here. I'll try to keep this while you guys are throwing in your questions. During my landing this December, can I have bank statements with me instead of cash? 100% you can, yes. Does the accounts have to be at least 6 months old? No, they don't. So you said I used to live in my home country, recently moved to the US, brought all my money with me. The accounts I opened here in August are not going to be 6 months old by the time I land. No, they don't have to be. You just have to be able to show very clearly the proof of funds and ultimately confirm that they are available for you to settle. So that shouldn't be an issue for you, Razib. Okay, Sanjeev says, if a person is applying as non-accompanying spouse, does he/she have to show proof of funds for complete family? Yes. All of your dependents have to be included in that calculation. And that's right within the instructions that IRCC provides. So even if you lift them as non-accompanying, they still have to be, they're still a member, they're still dependent upon you. And so the government still expects you to show those proof of funds. Okay, Rakshita says, hi, Raj from India. I don't see personal history section in my EE profile. That's because it doesn't show up in your profile. The personal history section only shows up in the eAPR part, as well as your travel history. It's only after you get your ITA. Good question. All right. Hey, we're whipping through these pretty good. Okay. Masad says, hi, Mark. I did a 2-year program on an online education with a recognized university in my country. ECA shows the conversion as 2-year post-secondary diploma and doesn't mention anything such as distance learning. Does it work for EE? I'm asking because I've read distance or online learning is recognized by EE only if it makes up half of the program. Ultimately, Express Entry supports the educational credential assessment process. And so if you have an ECA that says that the credential is accepted, then it's going to be accepted. There's a lot of reasons why they would, if someone's going to question the legitimacy of it, Well, the whole purpose of having the educational credential assessment agencies is so that an officer does not have to look into that or look past it or think past it. If they feel like something's a fraud or it's not true or accurate, then yeah, it makes sense. They're going to ask more questions. But in these circumstances, when it comes to getting your ECA shown, the most important part is what the W company says, or ICAS or IQUES or whatever, one of the other ones, U of T. All right, good question. Okay, Sohan says, I'm planning to get married after I get my COPR, but before landing in Canada so that I can sponsor my spouse as soon as I get there. Would that create any problems when I start my spouse's application process, since I'll be getting married right before I get there? Yes, it will delay everything because your spouse is going to need to be added. You can probably add on another 4 to 6 months for processing, because once you get your ITA and you submit your eAPR as a single person, when you get married, there is a mechanism in place to allow you to be able to add a spouse if your family composition changes. And that's found in section A11.2 of the Act. And there's actually a policy specifically on this, A11.2. Immigration. Okay, we'll pull it up. I got my cap locks on here. So this policy right here, and I will actually copy this just for you, and I'll put it in the I'll put it in the comments here so you can see it. This policy describes the circumstances and what you need to do roughly when it comes time to actually adding a spouse or getting married before you land. But it's going to delay everything because your spouse has to complete her information that they need, provide her documents. She has to get her immigration, medical, police clearances, all of those things. So it will definitely slow things up. But without a doubt, if you're not married already, it will allow you to bring your spouse sooner than if you had to go through the process of sponsoring her after. Okay. Rajiv says, my question is on proof of funds. I'm an IT professional working in India, and I'm having loans in India, and my loans are getting debited from my account. The same account I'm using to show funds. Is that okay? Is it not going to impact my application in any way? Well, the reality is your funds have to show a balance that is high enough, and it has to meet the minimum requirements for just that are set for proof of funds. And if you have money coming in and out, generally what they're looking at is the level amount, right? So it shouldn't be an issue if your funds are not dropping substantially, but if they're dropping and not going back up, then that's going to be an issue. But if they're going up and down, but they're right around that level, that's why the government asks for your average balance for the past 6 months. Okay. All right. Rajiv says, my question is on proof of funds. I'm an IT professional in India. Oh, I already read that one. Let's see here. I'll jump down here. Okay. Jagjot says score is 429. Any chances? Limited, my friend. If you have no connection with Canada, you're not going to get drawn under the general provisions of express entry. It's just not going to happen. And I have many, many consults with people exploring all the different avenues that are available to be able to actually find ways of increasing your score and doing all that you can to give yourselves the best chance of actually getting an ITA. And so I'm just putting a link right in the notes here where you can book a paid consultation, because I probably do more of these consults than at any time else. For a 30-minute consult, we can usually canvas all the options that are available to you, and that's what I recommend people do. All right, and it's $210 for a 30-minute consult. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Okay. Okay, here we go. Who signs stamps a translation affidavit to be credible? Someone who is a certified translator. They're the ones who do it. So it has to be the person who did the translation, and then they're swearing the affidavit that they did it correctly and that they did it from the original true copy of whatever they were translating. Okay. Supriya says, hello, Mark, please see my mail. Send to your email ID. Okay, Supriya. I'm assuming if it's a specific question, then we'll definitely go ahead and set up a paid consultation with you. Otherwise, we will I'll take a look, and if it's an EE Live Q&A question, I'll consider it for next week. Rohit says, if I'm doing part-time study and full-time job, will there be any issue? None. Zero. Education while you're working does not impact as long as you meet the minimum requirements for claiming skilled work. You can study while you're working. There is no conflict, despite all of those stupid agents and everywhere, like over in India and Pakistan, who tell you can't. They don't know the law. Bad. Okay. Jagjot says, heard about different provinces removing the software developer code from their PNP. Is it true? Well, yeah. Like there's changes all the time within all the various provinces, and they can choose who to put on the application on the occupations in demand list and who not. They come on, they come off. It just depends. So, okay. Rajiv says, I did my bachelor's degree. That is 4 years and 1 year postgrad certificate program within Canada. Which category I will be in CRS? Which one I need to choose? I don't know what you mean, my friend. Ultimately, you're going to get a West assessment for anything that's outside of Canada, and a 1 year postgrad certificate is at a PhD. I don't know what that would be, but it converts. There's no conversion. You just look and see what degree you were awarded, and if it's in Canada, then that's the degree you're going to get credit for. All right. Razib says, do I need photos during my landing? No, you don't, because the photos will be attached to your confirmation of permanent residence when you originally submitted it, your passport request to the government. So that's a good question there. And then this is kind of locking up. It always does this. I don't know why it does this. Okay, here we go. Okay, so there's my, okay, where are we at here? Okay, so now we're at submarine. Okay, I'm a CFA charter holder, a 4-year bachelor's degree. Would I still be counted as only bachelor's in education and would not any points for CFA? Nope, accountant isn't on the list. So I'll show you submarine right now. So let's go here and let's go to CRS criteria, which I actually have already pulled up, but I'll just show you. So we'll go to the criteria and then we'll go down to the specific. Actually, I better share my screen. I made this mistake before. Okay, so we'll go down here and we will move this over just a little bit so it's not interfering. And then we'll scroll down and you'll see here, once we get to, close that. Once we get to education right here, you'll see professional degree is for medicine, veterinary medicine, dentistry, optometry, law, chiropractic medicine, or pharmacy, not accountants. Okay, good question. Moving on. Next one, and we'll actually shrink that down and I'll get my ugly mug again. Okay, hey, I'm getting better at this. All right, let's, okay. Okay, next one, Balaji says, together myself and my and wife, CRS score is 439. If I remove my wife, then it goes up to 441. Should I go ahead and do that? Balaji, I just had that exact question with Chris, my good friend. I answered that in detail. So it's up to you what you want to do, but I cover that all in detail at about the 12-minute mark, I think, of this video. So you can go back and you can listen to all of that, but you just probably missed it. But the situation was identical to yours. And in their case, I said, yes, 100% we moved forward. But you have to understand the consequences of doing that and the fact that for some of you, you may be apart for some time. Okay, Rakshita says, or Raj says, I'm partly skill level A, partly skill 0. Should I try claiming both? No. You're going to pick your main, you have to pick your primary knock. And that is something that I spend more time, well, that's one of the top things that I do consults with, is going through to help people identify the correct knock. Because if you get it wrong, you're done. And your application will get refused. Rohit says, thanks a lot, Mark. God bless you. You're very welcome, my friend. Irish says, hi, Mark. Just concerned if the Atlantic Immigration Pilot Program is easy and possible for my situation. Okay, this is one where I can't tell you if you are eligible for any programs, and I can just answer specific questions through a paid consultation. So I recommend that you do that, Rish, and we can talk about it. But ultimately, these have to be just general in nature that helps everybody, and assessing your own qualifications. I can't answer that without knowing a whole lot more than just a few little pieces in the comment section. Okay, Sayem says, I have sufficient amount in my account for more than a year now as funds. Do I have to get a gift deed or any proof of gift? Well, the reality is, if the funds have been given to you a year ago, your average balance in your account is going to be high enough for the past 6 months. Usually, if you've got money in your account for that length of time, then you're not going to need a gift deed. The fact is, rarely is someone going to have a loan that's just sitting in their account for that time period. It's more likely to actually be yours. So I only ask for gift deeds when it's a large sum that's been recently deposited and the government wants to know the source of it. But when you get your letter from your bank, it's going to show your average balance for the past 6 months, and that's what you have to demonstrate. That's what you have to show. With that being said, if for whatever reason you want to, there's nothing stopping you from being careful and just submitting a gift deed as well, just for the sake of it. Now I got to check something out here, guys. I got to make sure that I'm going a little bit over here because I am wanting to answer as many questions as possible, but I need to make sure that I don't have some consultation that I'm missing here. 2 o'clock. Okay, I'm good. I'm good. Got another consult at 2. Okay, Craig says, hi, Mark. I'm currently in the pool and have realized I need to change some of the work experience to a different knock. From a C to a B. Yes, because Craig, with a C, you're not qualifying. He says, I can easily prove that it is currently the wrong knock through work reference, etc. Would you suggest updating the current work entry or deleting it and adding the correct field? Both look suspicious. Thank you. Craig, at any time you can go into your profile and make whatever changes you want. There's no issues at all. Yeah, go ahead, make those changes. It's not an issue at all. There's none. You can update your profile. You can make changes. It's not going to be an issue. And I'm assuming you're at the profile stage. Okay, Anis, can we request an urgent PR card upon landing if we're leaving the country shortly after? If so, how long would it take to have the card? You can, the first card that you get, yeah, you can reach out. There is a process to request it, but it's not often granted. So you leaving the country to go back, in many cases, they're going to need a pretty significant justification why. And you just doing a soft landing and wanting to go home, that probably isn't going to cut it. But there is a process for you to be able to do that. And I do help people with that when they land in Canada. We do help with that. We provide that as a service. Shoaib says, hi from Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Hi. How many empty pages in a passport do I need before I send my passport for COPR? I always make sure that there's that there's at least 3. You probably can get by with less, but when you get your confirmation of permanent residence, or I should say when you get your passport request, it will give you specific instructions on how many pages they want. Chris says, thanks, Mark. We finally decided to move forward. Yes, there's Chris. There's my man. Awesome. So excited. Okay. Sohan says, is it okay if I evaluate only my master's degree if I'm sure that it's equivalent for a Canadian master's? Yeah, that's all you need. Yep, I agree with you there. The only difference is if for whatever reason it isn't equated as a master's, then you're going to have to go back and get your bachelor's done so that you can now claim 2 or more degrees. All right, one more. Balaji says, together myself and my wife scores 4th. Okay, I already answered that, buddy. I answered that. Balaji, I answered that. You were the one that sent in the written one. You must have just tuned in a little bit late. I did answer your question, so just look in the description and then you'll be able to find where your answer was given. Okay, I think that's it, guys. I'm going to stop right there. This was a great EE Live Q&A today, guys. It was a pleasure. Thanks so much for all the great questions and those who were patient. And I was able to answer a bunch for those that were hanging around. And we had a great group attending today, so it was an awesome live one. And I remember, realize, guys, that at midnight, most of the people there's a lot of people over in Asia Pacific that are fast asleep. And so, this works for me because, hey, it's me taking time out of work. Basically, I don't have my lunch break on Tuesdays to do this at my office. And now I'm back to work. But this is, it's all designed to help you guys. And those who actually get up and watch it are rewarded. And remember, if you want your questions answered, the best way is to send an email to mholthy@stringham.ca and put EE Live Q&A in the subject line. And then you could very well see your question answered in my next EE Live Q&A. There's no guarantees, but you could. I also wanted to remind all of you awesome people that once again, this whole process is made possible by this, the Express Entry Complete Step-by-Step Guide to doing it yourself. And those who've tuned in late and are just in the process now of kind of catching up and realizing, oh, Mark is live and oh, I missed it. I just want to show you that if you go to the Canadian Immigration Institute and you go to the website, you just can type that in. I have a special offer that I am giving to people that are actually watching these videos. So if you stick around to the very end, like those of you who are here, and you click on enroll here and you choose one-time purchase, lifetime access, you click on enroll. And then once this goes through, you click on add coupon and type in this coupon right here. And this is only for you guys, EEDIY 50%, and click apply. you'll get lifetime access for half off at $248.50 US. So that is available for all of you awesome folks out there. And I also want to let you know that for those of you who are tuning in, if I can find it, I think this is, let me see, this one I think is it, right? Actually, I think it's this one. Is it this one? Yeah, this one here. I'm kind of dancing around trying to find the right image here, ducking. This right here is, this is a special offer that I have for members of the Express Entry Law private Facebook group as well. And it is a 50% off my gold plan. So this is the smokingest deal, crazy price that I have decided to offer yet. And so I don't advertise it throughout the world. It's only for people who actually sit and watch the video and they get rewarded. And so if you tell me, hey, I saw this on your video and you want me to represent you, I will do it. Full representation for $2,500 Canadian, plus taxes and the government fees. And so I would wager you're going to be pretty hard pressed to find a Canadian immigration lawyer offering it at that price in Canada. But I'm doing it just to try and help all of you guys. So there is the last little bit. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. It was awesome having you join me. I wish you guys all the best. And I'm going to sign you off once again with my lovely horse Joe and my daughter Michaela. That is totally where I want to spend all my evenings until the snow starts to fly here. So there is Joe. And I'll show some more pictures of me and all the fun stuff that I'm doing with this lovely guy, because this is what I do in my spare time now, Mr. Joe. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. I hope all of you guys have a wonderful evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you are. And I wish you all the best as you navigate this crazy world that we call Express Entry. Mark Holthe, Canadian immigration lawyer, ex-immigration officer, and former high school teacher, signing off. See you later.